Malelele Pulavinaka Talafalava and hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pacific Empowerment Podcast with Akanesi Fusi. I hope you are doing fine wherever you're listening from or wherever you're watching from. So today we're talking about something big that's happening right now in the United States. And it's the release of the Epstein Files. The US House of Representatives had just voted 427 to 1 to force the release of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, including flight logs and records connected to powerful people. The bill is now waiting on the Senate and Donald Trump's signature, so fingers crossed Donald Trump will sign it. But I don't want this to be just American gossip. No. For us in the Pacific, I want to connect this to what I've been talking about in our Faigava circles, in our families, in our churches. Men who think they are above the law, who think their position, their money, or their circle of friends can protect them while they abuse women and children. My message in this episode is very simple. No one is more powerful than the law and the truth. So let's start with the basics. Who was Jeffrey Epstein, you may ask? I'll give you a short history. Jeffrey Epstein was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1953. He started out as a teacher, then moved into finance, and over time, he became known as a very wealthy financier and socialite. He owned a huge townhouse in Manhattan, a ranch in New Mexico, properties in Palm Beach, and two private islands in the United States Virgin Islands, Little St. James and Great St. James. Little St. James would later be nicknamed Epstein Island or Pedophile Island or the Orgy Island, as we usually hear on the news or on social media. Epstein's power came from three things: money, he controlled hundreds of millions of dollars; connections, he surrounded himself with presidents, princes, celebrities, billionaires, scientists, so many famous people that we often see on TV. And the third one is secrecy: private planes, private islands, and private compounds. In 1998, a company called LSJ LLC bought Little St. James for about $7.95 million. And documents show Epstein was the sole owner. It became his primary residence and base of operations. But behind the fancy houses and celebrity friends, Epstein was a convicted sex offender. In 2008, he pleaded guilty in Florida to soliciting a minor for prostitution in a controversial plea deal. Then, in 2019, he was arrested again on federal charges of sex trafficking minors. A month later, he was found dead in his jail cell, and his death was ruled a suicide. So that's who he was in public: a rich man with powerful friends. But what was really happening on his plane and on those islands? Well, Epstein owned a Boeing 727 nicknamed the Lolita Express. And that's already a red flag if you know the book or the movie Lolita, which is about a grown man abusing a 12-year-old girl. The jet was used to fly Epstein, his associates, and according to victims, underage girls around the world. There are allegations that sex acts with minors happened on that plane, arranged by Ghislaine Maxwell, who is now in prison for her role in trafficking. Now, let's talk about Little St. James, the island. Prosecutors in the United States Virgin Islands have described it as a perfect hideaway in heaven for trafficking young women and underage girls for sexual servitude, child abuse, and sexual assault. The island had a main villa, guest houses, staff, buildings, a private dock, and helipad, a strange blue and white striped building people call the Temple. Victims and court documents say girls, some as young as early teens, were brought to the island by private jet, yacht, or helicopter. They were pressured, groomed, or forced into massages that turned into sexual assaults. The isolation of the islands made it almost impossible to escape or seek help. There's no just run to the police station when you're in the middle of the ocean. You can't swim anywhere. The island's reputation became so notorious that people started calling it Pedophile Island and Orgy Island. There are also allegations from Virginia Giuffre and others that high profile men took part in sexual activity with her and other young women on the island, including an allegation that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew there. He and Buckingham Palace have denied those accusations. So we have this picture: a private island controlled by one man with a constant flow of flights and boats, a staff dependent on him, and vulnerable girls brought in and abused. That is how Epstein used his wealth and property to hide his crimes in plain sight. What about the powerful people in Epstein's circle? Well, one reason the world cares so much about the Epstein Files is because of the names connected to him. Court documents, flight logs, and calendars mention hundreds of people, many of them not accused of any crime, but clearly part of his social and business circle. Some of the big names that appear in documents and reporting include Bill Clinton, the former US president, Donald Trump, current US president, at the time of Epstein's 2019 arrest, Prince Andrew from the British royal family, Michael Jackson, David Copperfield, Stephen Hawking, and various billionaires, academics, and politicians, including Bill Gates. Now, very important to note that being named in documents or logs does not automatically mean someone committed a crime. No. Many of these figures deny any wrongdoing and, in many cases, have not been accused of sexual abuse themselves. The documents show who was in his orbit. They don't prove what each person did. Let's talk about Bill Clinton, because his name comes up a lot online. Flight logs show that Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane multiple times after he left the presidency, mainly around 2002 to 2003, for trips linked to the Clinton Foundation, including a well-known Africa trip with actors Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. Those logs list Clinton on at least 17 flight legs on Epstein's jets in that period. Some people online inflate this to 26 or more by counting every segment separately. But Clinton's office has said he never visited Epstein's island and knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. They deny allegations that he was involved in any abuse. Other powerful figures like Donald Trump were also photographed and seen socializing with Epstein over the years, especially in the 1990s and early 2000s. Trump has since distanced himself and denied any wrongdoing. So, what does this tell us? Epstein deliberately surrounded himself with some of the most powerful and famous people in the world. That gave him legitimacy. If presidents and princes hang out with me, I must be respectable. Gave him access to models, young women, social events, and new victims. And also gave him protection. Many people were too scared, too invested, or too embarrassed to rock the boat. And even now, as more names pop up in unsealed court documents and in these new Epstein files, we're still trying to separate who was simply in the same room and who was actually complicit in abuse. Now, here's the most important part of the story. None of this would be happening without the victims who spoke out. I want to take a moment to honor a woman whose courage changed the course of this entire case, Virginia Giuffre. Virginia was one of the first survivors to publicly speak out about Epstein's trafficking her when she was a minor. She appeared in the Netflix documentary Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich in 2020. I remember watching that documentary when it first aired on Netflix, where she told the world what really happened behind the wealth and secrecy. Her testimony sparked others to come forward, other victims, lawsuits to reopen, and ultimately pressured the governments and courts to reveal the truth. One survivor's voice created a global movement for justice. Sadly, Virginia passed away earlier this year in April 2025 at just 41 years old. Her death was reported as suicide, though her family has raised concerns. May she rest in peace. Virginia's bravery leaves a legacy. She showed the world that victims can bring down even the most powerful predators. No one is safe. Women like Virginia Giuffre and many others spend years telling their stories, sometimes ignored, sometimes attacked, sometimes disbelieved. Their testimonies, sworn statements, and lawsuits forced the courts and the media to pay attention. Survivors and their lawyers pushed for unsealed court documents and fought for the truth to become public. In the last few years, hundreds of pages of files have been unsealed, listing over 200 names connected in different ways to Epstein, from victims and staff to high profile friends and associates. And now, with this new Epstein Files Transparency Act, survivors have stood outside the US Capitol telling their stories and demanding that Congress release everything the Department of Justice holds on Epstein and his operations. So, think about this. One girl, one young woman, one survivor decides to come forward and tell the truth. That inspires another. That leads to a lawsuit. That lawsuit leads to documents, to investigations, and to arrest. Years later, their voices are strong enough that an entire congress of hundreds of politicians has to listen and vote to open the files. Can you imagine that? That is the power of a victim speaking up. Even when the abuser is rich, connected, and hiding on a private island, even when the abuser has presidents and princes in his phone, the courage of survivors can still shake the whole system. So, now let's bring this home to us here in the Pacific. You may be wondering, why am I talking about this? It's in the United States. What does it have to do with us here in the Pacific? I've been talking a lot about Faigava men. Not all men, but certain men in these circles who think, I'm connected, I'm respected, I'm safe. People won't believe her over me. This is just our custom, our way. No one will challenge it. I've heard stories of men preying on underage girls around Faigava spaces, sending explicit photos, crossing boundaries, acting like pedos, and thinking they are untouchable. What Epstein's stories show us is this: powerful networks can hide abuse for a while, but when victims speak out, when evidence starts coming out, no circle is safe. You can be a billionaire on a private island, a prince in a palace, or a respected man in a village, or a church minister. Your title cannot protect you from the truth forever. In our Pacific context, that means Faigava circles need to stop protecting men who prey on young women and girls. Churches and families need to stop silencing victims to protect the family name. Communities need to make it clear: culture is not a shield for sin or crime. I'm not sharing this to scare people, no. I'm sharing this to wake us up so we can wake up. If survivors in America can take on billionaires and presidents and force Congress to open the files, our women, our children, our survivors in the Pacific can also speak out, tell their stories, and hold predators accountable, even those who hide behind culture, cover, or church. No one is above the law or the truth. No. Let me say my main point clearly for everyone listening. No one is more powerful than the law and the truth. Epstein thought he was untouchable. He had private islands, private jets, powerful friends. Yet today, his name is a symbol of disgrace. His properties have been sold off. His reputation is destroyed. And the world is reading the details of his crime in court documents and news reports. And it all goes back to victims who refuse to stay silent. For my Pacific sisters and brothers listening, If you are a survivor, your story matters. You might think, I'm just one person from a small island. Who will listen to me? But look at what one person's testimony started in the Epstein case. If you are a man in those circles, check yourself. Don't think your position, your chief title, your church role, your Faigava group will protect you forever. No. If you are abusing or exploiting, the day will come when someone speaks. If you are a community or family, choose the side of truth, not the side of convenience. Truth might take time, justice might move slowly, but once the light starts shining, even the biggest names, presidents, princes, billionaires, can be dragged into it. As we watch what happens next with the Epstein Files, what gets released, whose names appear, what is confirmed, I want us in the Pacific to see more than just scandal. I want us to see the power of victims' voices, the importance of independent law and media, the danger of protecting abusers because they are important men. No. If this episode has stirred something in you, talk about it with someone you trust. If you are a survivor and feel safe enough, consider sharing your story with a counselor, a trusted friend, a support service, or even me. You are welcome to message me with your story if you want to share with the world so they can learn from. If you are a man in a Faigava circle, start calling out dodgy behavior, even if it's uncomfortable. On this specific empowerment podcast, I am going to keep having these hard conversations about cover, about culture, abuse, power, not to shame our people, but to heal and protect our people. Remember, no culture, no title, no amount of money is higher than the law and the truth and the word of God. So, before we end this episode, I want to share more testimonies that I've received this week. So every episode, I always share testimonies about how Faigava is affecting, our people, not just in Tonga, but in the Pacific, as well as Doa. If they were sexually harassed or sexually abused in Faigava, testimonies are still open. Also, the wives of Faigava men. But surprisingly, I'm starting to receive testimonies from men, and I love to see it. I love to see it because this is what I'm hoping for, for my podcast, to share with the world how kava is affecting our people, because kava is a silent killer. And I am excited for it. So I have a few testimonies. I've got 3 testimonies today that I'm going to share. I received another testimony from Nauru last week. After I share the testimony from the police officer in Nauru, I received this beautiful testimony and I want to read it out because I know it will help so many men out there, in the Pacific, and women as well, who are currently having kava addictions or who are currently abusing kava. So here is his testimony. Hi, Akanesi. I hope you're doing well. I'm writing to you from Nauru, and I hope you don't mind me staying anonymous. Here, once your name appears online, people talk, people judge, and people twist things. So I'm keeping my name out of it. But even then, I still wanted to reach out because I'm a big fan of what you're doing. Your voice is strong, your honesty is real, and your courage reaches further than you know. I want to share my story with you, the real version, the one I kept inside for a long time. I've been with my wife for 7 years. In the first 2 years, we had a good life. We helped each other, supported each other. I cooked, I did the buying, I made breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My wife cleaned and took care of our daughter. Our home felt steady. We felt like a team. But then Kava entered my life. Slowly at first, and I didn't see the trap until it closed around me. I started drinking more. Then I started staying out later. And before I knew it, every night turned into morning. I would drink from 7:30 p.m. all the way till 6 or 8 a.m. It became my routine. It became my world. I didn't see how much it was destroying the world inside my own home. My wife suffered quietly. She was doing everything alone while I was lost in kava. Every morning when she woke me up, tired and hurt, we ended up fighting. I didn't see how much she was carrying. I didn't see how much pain I was causing. Addiction blinds you. It steals your time, your love, your family, your peace. And here in Nauru, Kava has taken so much from our people. I've lost friends and family. Some died driving home half asleep, hitting poles or cars. Some drank till sunrise, slept a few hours, and never woke up again. Others had heart attacks from pushing their bodies too hard. And still, people think kava is harmless because it's not banned. Even though cigarettes and vapes are illegal, kava is still everywhere. Home bars, backyards, no limits. Young people drink, old people drink. Everyone think it's safe. But I've seen what it does. It destroys quietly. Then came December 28th, 2024, the night that changed my life forever. I had a dream so real and so terrifying that it shook me awake. In that dream, I saw something dark, something evil, and it was trying to take my daughter away from me. And deep inside, I knew the meaning. My drinking was opening the door to danger. I was losing myself, and I was risking losing her. I woke up shaking. I prayed with everything in me, and that moment I made my choice. I will not let addiction take me away from my family. I will not let it take my daughter. So that night, I stopped drinking kava. Just like that. No more, no looking back. And now in 2025, my life is changing again. I am home. I'm cooking again. I'm helping my wife. I'm being the father my daughter can rely on. I'm fixing what I almost destroyed. And every day, sober feels like a blessing, like I got a second chance at life. I wanted to tell you all this because your words have power. The way you speak, the messages you share, the strength in your honesty, it reaches people like me. Young or old, people can understand it. It wakes people up. It gives them courage. Even people who stay quiet, even people who hide their names like me, still feel the impact of your voice. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for speaking truth. Please don't stop. You're helping more people than you know. And I replied to his message. I was just thanking him for sharing his story, like this important, very powerful testimony that will help so many of our Pacific people. And I respond to him, thanking him for his honesty and for trusting me with his story. And this is his response. I feel like I need to read it because it's really raw, the truth and his feeling. He said, "Hi sis, thank you truly. Reading your message hit me straight in the heart. Hi, sis. Thank you truly. Reading your message hit me straight in the heart. I never thought my words would make anyone emotional, but I'm glad they reached you because everything I shared was real. No hiding, no pretending. Just the truth of what Kava did to me and the people I love. It means a lot to hear you say my story matters. For a long time, I felt like my pain didn't count, like I was just another man slipping away into Kava, another silent problem nobody really talks about. But when you said it will help others, that gave me hope. Hope that maybe my mistakes can become a warning for someone else before their family goes through the same heartbreak. You are right, sis. So many of our people still believe kava is harmless. I used to believe that too. But I watched it take my time, my energy, my health, and worst of all, it took me away from my wife and daughter. It changed the man I was supposed to be. And seeing families lose their men, some to accidents, some to exhaustion, some to their own bodies giving up, it breaks me every time. It's a slow death that looks peaceful on the outside, but inside it destroys everything. Your message reminded me that speaking up was the right thing to do. Thank you for giving me the courage to share something I've carried for years in silence. And thank you for understanding why I need to stay anonymous. Here at home, people judge more than they help. And sometimes that keeps us quiet even when we are drowning. Sis, please keep doing what you're doing. Your voice is opening eyes and shaking souls awake. If your videos reached me, someone who was deep in addiction, then I know they can reach others too. You are planting seeds in the hearts of men who don't even realize they need saving yet. Thank you again for treating my story with care And thank you for your blessings. May God bless you even more for the work you are doing for our people. When I read this testimony, I was so emotional. Reading, his dream and what he was feeling, I can feel the raw emotion. And to hear that he's finally able to release and tell his story so he can finally be free and continue on with his life. You know, this is what my platform is for. This is why I'm giving my platform to our people to be their voices, because I know our people can be judgmental, and that is why I am protecting the people who are messaging me with their stories so they can be free to share their stories and unload this burden that they've been carrying for so many years. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for trusting me with your story. This is a very powerful testimony, and I hope you are listening and learning. Like I said, I can be a bit loud sometimes. I can be a bit tough sometimes with my words, but I'm doing this because I want to help our people, because I want to wake our people up to see how cover is destroying our community, to see how cover is making us lazy and wasting so much of our talents and our gifts. And I hope this will wake more of our people up. I received another testimony from a wife of a Fijian man, and I want to read it out. It includes domestic violence. So this is her story. I thought I won lotto when I met my ex-partner. Good looking, sweet, and made my heart beat fast. We applied for his Aussie visa and life changed. He would disappear for hours, would go drink cover with his friends until all hours of the morning, even though I begged him not to because I had work the next morning. He would arrive home demanding sex, and to the point I would lay there while he did it. Looking back, it was rape. I would say, "You're hurting me," or "Stop," and he would keep going. He then ventured into drinking alcohol and smoking a lot of marijuana with his so called friends. I gulped beating after beating, including bruises all over my body, burn marked around my neck from being thrown around the room, burns from my clothing. So many slaps to the face, and the worst of all, a black eye that lasted for 3 weeks. I still had to work to pay bills while he roamed around with his friends, but I couldn't hide away. He started disappearing for days, and I would have no idea where he was. Finally, I went to the police and they put a DV in place, but that didn't stop him. Another smack to the face and a smashed phone worth over $1,000. His mother told me many times it was my fault and I should apologize. For what? Being a punching bag? Working 6 days a week while he drank and smoked drugs? It's hard to walk away, but I finally have had no contact with him for 3 days. I need to stay strong. I can do this. I deserve better. I feel sorry for this woman. She sent me a photo of her bruised face, and I feel so sorry for her. And this is what many women go through. From men who are drinking cover. Sometimes when both men and women, when they drink cover, after they finish drinking cover, they don't feel drunk enough. Then they continue on to drinking alcohol or smoking drugs so they can feel drunk or feel high enough. And that is the thing. So many people start with drinking cover and then end with drinking alcohol, and that is very dangerous for your liver. Kava alone is already dangerous enough, but to mix it with alcohol is very dangerous for your liver, for your body. So she said here she told his mother, but his mother blamed her and told her to go and apologize. And unfortunately, this is how so many women are reacting to domestic violence in the Pacific. They always blame the women and not the men. That needs to change. The man has to take accountability. And if you are a mother and your son is beating up your wife, you need to tell your son to stop it. Do not blame the woman. Teach your son to control himself, or take your son to go and seek help from a therapist and seek professional help, because domestic violence is a mental health issue and he needs help instead of blaming the woman. Okay, so last testimony here from a man about Faikava. He said, "I would very like to stay anonymous. Please, I'm not a kava drinker. I tried, but it wasn't for me. But I really did love the Philhy and listening to the oldies, chopping wisdom and listening to the song lines of our forefathers. It was evil. I mean, it was good. He enjoyed it. The togetherness is amazing. You couldn't possibly understand because you are a woman. I'm sure you understand that. But the Doa was always well respected by most. But shockingly, it's her egging these promiscuous conversations on hoping they'll make a bit more money. But that was when I was going kava when I was younger. Now, I've heard the boys tell stories of video proof of prostitutes and escorts being paid as the doa, and things get out of hand. And you'll be surprised, the people participating, it's the younger ones. They think it's funny. I've heard of church cover clubs in America and Tonga doing these despicable things on the weekly. Even if this isn't true everywhere, it yet begs the question. He ose tau tono no afe. Why is drinking kava the tradition we are identifying ourselves with and passing down? We have so much to offer, all this goodness shrouded in the shadow of kava culture. Educate yourselves, we gotta know better to do better. Sorry, not sorry. Ofatu. And yes, this is how bad the kava is. It's everywhere. It's in Tonga, it's in New Zealand, Australia, United States, especially the Tongan Faikawa circle with this Doa thing, it's getting worse. And if we don't do something about it now, it's going to get worse, because last week I shared how men were taking photos of the Doa without their consent and sent it to their mates, their group chats. One day, if we allow this Doa thing to continue, what is next? Sex trafficking? I mean, Doa is like sex trafficking already because some families are forcing their daughters or their nieces to go Doa for money without these young women's consent. They don't agree to it. They don't want to go Doa, but they need the money. And these families force them to go and Doa, and sometimes that's where these young women are sexually abused or sexually assaulted. That is sex trafficking. If you are sending these young women to these Faikawa men, to these Faikawa groups, knowing the danger, and what might happen to her. I know not all Faikava circles are like that, but majority of the Faikava circles with Doa is like that, because these men are drunk. But yeah, these are the testimonies that I have received this week. Testimonies are still open. Malo apito. Thank you for listening. If this episode was helpful, share it with someone. Your sister, your brother, your Faikawa mate, your pastor, your co-worker. Let's keep spreading awareness and push for change in our families and our islands. This is Akanesi from Pacific Empowerment. Until next time, stay courageous, stay awake, and never forget, truth wins. Malo opito vinakavakalevu fafetai lava, and have a great week.